Croc is a platformer developed by Argonaut Software and was released late 1997 for the PS1, Saturn, and Windows. We play as an adorably animated crocodile named Croc who needs to save his adopted family, the Gobbos, from the giant toad thing named Dante. Honestly, I have no clue what he's supposed to be. Honestly, I can't say too much about the graphics, as this is my first PS1 game I played, but I enjoyed watching most of the animations, and I really had a problem with everything else. There were a few points in the game where cracks in platforms and monkey bars were barely visible, but at least that didn't happen too often. My favorite thing about Croc was definitely the sound. Hearing Croc go kersplat, kersplat, and kapoof, kapoof is always a treat to hear. The music also fits the game pretty well, even if I wouldn't listen to it outside the game. To reach Dante, you must travel through 4 different islands: the forest, ice, desert, and castle. Each have 6 normal stages where you search for the Gobbos and 2 boss stages. The 6 Gobbos in each of the normal levels can usually be found pretty easily by making your way to the end. However, if you want to find all of them, you will also need to collect 5 colored gems in each level to access a special area. So finding them isn't too tricky, getting to them is a little more difficult. This is partially due to some tricky platforming, especially in the last 2 islands, and partially due to what could be seen as one of the major flaws in the game: controls. Pressing the up button will move you forward, like expected, but pressing the left or right buttons will rotate you instead of moving you in those directions. This wouldn't be too difficult to get used to if it wasn't also paired with the uncooperative camera. You can't really control the camera, so if it decides that it's a good idea to position itself in the most awkward angle possible, then there really isn't much you can do about it. You can move it up and down slightly with the L2 and R2 triggers, but it usually doesn't help much. These 2 things together will mean that you'll probably die a lot. Even a small, simple jump can become a hassle at times. The enemies in level don't help too much either, as defeating them only makes them go away for a few seconds. Despite this, I could pull through the first 2 islands easily enough. The last 2 islands is where it gets frustrating, but they are doable with a lot of continues. The only part that I found to be stupidly evil was a puzzle in the last island that has this horrible habit of being super glitchy. The health system in the game did help sometimes, as it doesn't matter how many hits you take, just as long as you have a gem on you. Sort of like Sonic. This system did make it a bit difficult to get more lives, however, as you need 100 gems for an extra life, and if you get hit, you lose most of the ones you've collected in that level. If you finish a level with less than 100 gems, they'll be carried over for future levels. But if you lose all your lives, this will reset. But at least some of the levels have free lives hanging around, so you can complete them as many times as you like for more. Now with the boss stages, there's always a bit of platforming to do before you actually face the boss, but it's generally not very difficult, even later in the game. The bosses themselves are, for the most part, pretty easy as well, maybe a bit too easy. Most of them just require running around, hit them once, and then repeat 2 more times. The few times that I did have trouble with them was only because I couldn't tell where I was hitting. And as there are no gems lying around in all except 1 battle, if you do die, then you'll have to defeat them without taking a single hit. At least the cutscenes you get after defeating one are interesting. Despite the challenging gameplay, I still, for the most part, enjoyed the game, and I recommend you to try it out if you're looking for a short but challenging platformer. Of course, just as long as you're willing to put up with the camera and controls.